episode 226 of Control Talk, now your smart buildings videocast and podcast. I am joined as usual by the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only soccer playing Kenny Smyers. We're back from Manchester, England, where we attended and covered the EZIO Global Conference, but we also got a chance, at least Kenny did, to play a little football, English style. So Kenny, man, good to see you, man. Welcome back.
Well, thank you very much. I did a lot of watching. My playing days are over, but it was a fabulous experience. We got to see Manchester United up close and personal. It's just an extraordinary event. The history there is incredible. 1854, they started as a group of railroad workers meeting on Saturdays to play, and it got so good they actually joined the league and kept winning, and turned into be one of the most exciting, profitable sports entities in the world. So we got to see Wayne Rooney play his last game. And for those that don't know, Manchester United plays in a couple of leagues. They play Premier League. We got to see them win their last Premier League game against Crystal Palace. And then, unfortunately, they lost in the European League final to Ajax. But so it's just an incredible experience because, I mean, those people live and die soccer.
Well, they really do. And I think when you look at most revered franchises on the planet in any sport, I think you have the Dallas Cowboys and then Manchester United. And it was kind of cool. EZIO just does this. I mean, it's a global event. We talk ad nauseum about what a great job these guys do because it's very innovative technology. But they really, really know how to show you a good time. And to get to go to the Manchester United game, to get to tour the locker rooms, to get to sit where the players sit. Man, you look good there, Kenny, sit where those players sit, baby.
Well, I'll tell you what, we had the same thrill with Real Madrid. But, to get onto the field is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have to take a special tour. But, I mean, to get there and actually walk through the locker room and sit down and dress, pretend you're in the locker room with the guys, Abramovich, all the other superstars they have there. We were in there where they're getting taped up before the matches, and then the coach's strategy. We saw the boards, how they strategize and come in and the halftime and try to, make up for whatever's going wrong and fix things. And they use the old-fashioned blackboard. They have video where they can show the video, like a global picture of the field where people were at and show them where they were out of step and didn't do things right. But he said they still rely mostly on the blackboard. So it's kind of neat to hear that kind of insight to, again, one of the greatest, most competitive leagues in the world, and then to see these guys just, where they do it and how the stadium is a magnificent stadium, 79,000 people. Seems like the whole part of town is arranged. All the transportation, funnels into it. It has massive media parking. It's gigantic. It's every bit as the NFL. When you go to one of the, like a Steeler game, you see all this really fancy networking stuff, and it's a lot of VIPs. A lot of really people on top of their game. From different other parts of the industries come in and they sit down in their respective seat, like a tennis match. They've got their own little box, and just to see all this happen on a game day of that magnitude, 80,000 people, it was really impressive.
No, it really was. And again, special thanks to EZIO. And I tell you what, Dad, we're going to talk a little bit more about the conference during the course of the show, but we got a little bit of stuff we need to go back and cover. Because you talk about great events coming up, we're going to be heading up to ControlCon, to the Cochrane 50th anniversary celebration, which is going to be quite the gala, ControlsCon. So we'll be up there Thursday, Friday. We'll be covering that event. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we head out to San Diego to cover Realcomm IBICon. And that's kind of where I think we should start, Kenny. We did a Smart Buildings Control Rewind with Leroy Walden. With a special offer. I'm not sure whether that offer still applies. It probably does, but if you're a master systems integrator or a consulting engineer, Realcomm IBICon is really the place you need to be because, among other things, the greatest real estate people are there. They're telling you what they want, what they're seeing, what they need. So it's the only place I know that you can really get updated on the latest technologies with the product shows, the latest topics with the speakers that Jim Young and Howard Berger from Realcomm IBICon bring in. And at the same time, have the opportunity to actually meet potential clients. I mean, it's probably the best bang for the buck you can get. What do you think?
Well, again, it's first of all, it's in San Diego, so the environment there is just going there. It's like going to paradise for a couple of days because they get the perfect weather. But I'm looking at some of the things coming up. I have the Intelligent Buildings has a limited appointments remain free for about a $5,000 assessment consulting value. These are the kind of things that are happening out there. So if you have anybody that you know in your organization or your your global portfolio or national portfolio that needs to get up to speed on building cybersecurity or big data analytics, you can go out there and talk to just like a vendor show full of the top experts in their respective fields. So what this does, what Jim Young and Howard Berger do and the team at Realcomm, IBCOM, is they bring together the kings and queens of their respective industries, and it's an informative networking meeting. But if you need something done, it reminded me of the old days in Pittsburgh. It was one of the cities in the world where you could come in and you could buy a steel mill. It had the engineering community that could design it, the engineering community that could build it, and it had Mellon Bank on Grant Street to finance it. You could leave Pittsburgh with a steel mill in your pocket. Well, Realcomm has that same kind of concept. They have the people that are the can-do, the cream of the crop for all fields regarding real estate and now regarding building automation, lighting. So it's just an amazing vendor portfolio out there too that you can walk from, inside of a very confined space and get anything you need to do with real estate and buildings.
It's good stuff, Kenny. It's good stuff. And well, speaking of cybersecurity, which is a trend Kenny and I've been tracking for quite some time, our friend Phil Zito has a website, Building Automation Monthly, BAM, B-A-M. And Phil has put together a really good sort of IT course for the really geared towards the controls professional. And, you definitely got to deal with the IT people. You got to know what's going on. But, rather than have to learn the whole field of it, I think Phil is definitely tailoring this to the building automation control specialist. And we've got a link on the site. You can actually check that out. I encourage you to, if you haven't been over to BAM and check Phil Zito out, very knowledgeable guy, Kenny. I mean, he's got the background, kind of like our friend Ken Sinclair, works with Johnson Controls and has actually been in the field and done it.
Well, you're so right. And just hats off to Fearless Phil Zito. Over the Veterans Day holiday, he had a special that the profit he made on Veterans Day went to a snowball charity, and he raised $249, and he actually posted the check that he made that contribution. But just to give you an idea, the information technology for BS professionals has 13 modules full of video training, a detailed course workbook, downloadable audio and video files, a private Facebook community, 2 bonus mini courses, 5 live group training calls. And right now he only has room for 200 people. And there's 113 spots left. So it is moving and grooving. Is rising in the success. And a lot of people find out, like you said, the Cliff Note style of getting up to speed on information technology for everybody, whether you're a sales engineer, whether you're a specifying engineer. I mean, if you can go somewhere and cherry pick, the sweet spots of all the knowledges within the information technology to be successful at it, this is an opportunity. So it's well done, Phil Zito.
Well done, Phil. We need to get Phil back on the show, hear what that boy's been up to. So Kenny, the Renaissance. The Renaissance was one of the greatest periods in history in terms of change. Real quick, let's get some stable datum on the Renaissance, and then let's sort of then roll into our next post and sort of talk about why we think we are in a smart building controls Renaissance.
Well, we did our homework. We got excited about this, and we thought, let's do some research. Let's really get in touch with the Renaissance. We started that initially back with the Intelligent Building Renaissance. Smart Building Renaissance was in Paris. We were standing in front of the Louvre, and to our left was buildings that were several hundred years old, 400 or 500 years old, and from King Louis XIV. And then right beside it was the Louvre, and it had the glass pyramid that a lot of people love and a lot of people hate. But it was the polarity of the modern and the old world. But what happened was the Renaissance. The Renaissance was where people started to think outside the box. People could read and write. We learned in Scotland that they were one of the most educated groups and people at their time, because the leadership, the people in charge, the king, basically said he wanted everybody to read because he wanted them to read the Bible. Well, guess what? When they learned how to read, they read other materials besides the Bible. So we got to see what David Hume, the guy that basically started thinking outside the box. So we went to Edinburgh to get prepped for this Renaissance, and then the actual execution. So we say that
hang on a second, real quick, because Edinburgh, there's quite a significance there, because you had the Renaissance, which started many years ago, and sort of went around Europe, and there was sort of a second. It wasn't really a Renaissance; they called it the Scottish Enlightenment. And right. That's where guys like David Hume, the great philosopher, but Edinburgh as a city probably one of the cradles of civilization in terms of philosophy, engineering, literature. I mean, hell, I think they invented golf there and scotch. Need we say more? But so we thought it was before we went to Manchester, England for the EZIO conference. We thought that was worth making a trip to sort of take our Control Trends community on a little tour around this incredible city. And incredible is just, I think it's kind of off the beaten path. You sort of have to make an effort to get there. It doesn't take much of an effort, but it's so worth, going there and seeing all the history there. And you're going to tell us about some of the other great people that are there, and the people are just so friendly there, Kenny. It was just a marvelous time, as you can see in the video. But yes, let's tell our community a little bit more about Edinburgh and why that's such an important place.
Well, like you said, the Enlightenment, the Scottish Enlightenment, they actually compared, they called themselves the Athens of the North. As we say in our post, it's a remarkable and proud city that led the 17th century world into a new age of enlightenment in the field of economics, science, mathematics, engineering, medicine, philosophy, and literature. So what we did then, we created that base of a reference and a parallel to what we're seeing now in our modern world, how we have a new group of people thinking outside the box in our industry and are delivering products and solutions. Most of it's software, and most of it is done, in the magic world behind the curtains where you're working with IoT and you're working with chip technologies, and so we said that, in the same vein of thought, we talk about EZIO and Mike Marston as a true Rousseau in our industry, and Lim Hoon Chat, a guy like Da Vinci, where it just keeps creating new solutions based on the demands of the time. So that's the whole concept of the Renaissance, is that we're finally getting into the deep and wide market, as Mike Marston says, where small buildings have the same opportunity to bring in and leverage technology to deliver energy management, analytics, data management, so you get the smart, actionable data, and you can do it at the whole concept of going to the cloud is starting to be challenged by doing it at the edge. So,
we're going to get into more details with that, but to your point, I think what Hume did, and people, they question the unquestionable authorities. Okay. And in that particular case, it was the church, right? And so if you think about building automation controls, we've always done things a certain way. The technology has moved along, but as we've said, we think the Genghis Khan, the horde, the threat that is going to change things the way we're doing it is coming out of the West, which is Silicon Valley. And they are framing up the expectations for what building owners are going to want out of buildings. And, we still can move the move the water and the air through the buildings. You still have to do that. But in terms of the interfaces, in terms of the building automation systems as we know it, it is changing. And I think EZIO is really on board with this. Other companies that are too, but EZIO is one that just goes, hey, who cares? We've always done it this way. What if we did it this way? So they're looking. In other words, their motto is there are no sacred cows. If they get a sacred cow, they make hamburger out of it, right? And they tear it apart. And if you go to the videos, and we'll talk more about it as we get into the show, they are just completely ripping apart the way things have been done in the past and changing it, taking the best of all worlds. And, they obsolete themselves maybe in a way, because if there's a better way to do it, they cannibalize themselves. They go ahead and shift to the next level. So there are other companies in our industry that are doing that. But Kenny and I say this because we think it's a trend, and we think if you're going to be relevant and if you're going to survive this smart building controls renaissance, it can't be, your mindset can't be, we're going to build a product and the life cycle is going to be 10 or 15 years. You're lucky if you get 10 or 15 months out of it. So, and again, this is not just me and Kenny making this up. This is history. If you go back and look at the Renaissance or the Scottish Enlightenment, now the only difference is communications have changed a bunch, right, Kenny, since those times. So those times it took years and years and years for these ideas to take hold and spread. But with the advent of the internet and the way we're connected now, the ideas change almost instantaneously. So speed is really the thing you have to grapple with the most, the speed of change and how you're gonna deal with that.
Right, and it's not like you're lessening the standards. As you said, the people from Silicon Valley are setting a new expectation. In other words, and we're going to transition that in later on the show because we have a special guest coming up, but the expectations are being put in place by people coming from their house and having access to so much technology and voice control over the television, voice control over this, that, and the other. And they go to work and they're in this antiquated building with this, a thing on the wall that they could turn left and right, up and down, which used to be the cat's meow. But now we're seeing that sensor that used to be on the wall is being morphed into the human being's ability to integrate to the system and become a smart sensor in and of themselves. And they become the sensor. They become where the occupants really truly are. And if the occupant in that zone, the honest zoning is now, can also say, I'm unhappy because I'm cold or I'm hot or I'm fine. And now this integration, this assimilation of this presence goes into the actual real data. I mean, this is going to be coming from the expectations of people, and that's why Realcomm and I become so relevant, because as you get this smart, intelligent, connected building, and you take it to the level, and then we saw with Project Haystack, you start tagging things, and the work being done at the very first editions and iterations of the building intelligence can be used all the way up to the smart city grid level. So we're connecting these dots, and to us, this is a renaissance. This is something unusual. This is like a new enlightenment period, but it's happening within our industry. It's difficult to put a handle on it because it's happening around you. It's like being in a fire. Your most important threat is not to get caught trapped in the fire and get out of it, but you're missing the fact that you're running in the wrong direction. The field that to your left was clear. The field to your right is even worse. So you need some support. You need to get some aerial support, and I think that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we're able to accomplish by going to all these meetings and events. Is that as it continues to unwind in the sequence, you can make better decisions as an organization, a big one or a little one or a medium-sized one, or even a manufacturer, because we're sharing information that you probably can't even put your own people into place to get. So it's a certain amount of intel that is being, we're trying to keep it together, keep it packed, keep it relevant. But the content that we're putting together right now, I think, is very relevant to this renaissance we're talking about.
Kenny, I could not agree more. And I think the thing is, the reason people study history and why history is so valuable is, at least in my experience, history does repeat itself. History leaves clues. There are nuances to things, but man, there's a saying, there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Right. Well, it tends to repeat itself, and so we're seeing, and the reason why we're so excited about this is that it's not just the North American perspective. This global thing, and what EGIO put forth for presentation and digestion was that this is global. This isn't just North America market or Eastern Europe or Western Europe or South America. These are the things that are common. This is the common denominator, the common language that we all speak in this industry is buildings, and the comfort level inside of it and the ability to achieve that using the least amount of layers, the least amount of redundancies and duplications, and then the latest and greatest connectivities so that you can create data, make it presentable in more than one context, more than one domain. So the electrical people can use it grid-wise. Everybody can use the same set of informations. And what this does is you achieve incredible economies of scale. So having the controllers that you can afford now, that have the programming tools and that have kind of like solve the licensing issues, and whatever, and still provide people in the industry enough profit margins to survive and sustain their organizations, you're really achieving something on a global basis.
Well, you are, and our next two posts are around the EGIO Global Partner event. The first one is we kicked off with the Manchester United game versus Crystal Palace. EGIO hosted us in a VIP suite before the game. So it's good footage of what it's like to be at an English soccer game. I was actually able to take the cameras in and shoot some footage there, and we got a chance to catch up with Johan Shacklerod, who runs the European operation, as well as Mike Marston. And then the next post, Kenny, we rolled right into the day 2 event. The theme being the rules have changed, and so a couple things you sort of regarding that. First of all, you mentioned the global. I want to tie back into that. EGIO actually introduced in the day 2 their first global account, not a national account. We're familiar with national accounts. This is a global account that has places all around the world that have seen the EGIO technology, have vetted it out and said, this is for us. Now, what's interesting about this is EGIO is going to be bringing this to their distribution partners and integrators across the world. They're not selling direct. They've sold the national account on the value that their distribution and contractor network brings, which obviously we appreciate because quite often it's very tempting when the national account, or in this case a global account, goes, no, we just want to buy direct and blah blah blah. They try to negotiate those people out. We're typically the first victims to fall to that, but I think to EZIO's credit, they see the value that their networks bring. And Kenny, this to me is just a huge event that should be marked down. And we're not going to say who the account is because those things are still working, but it's a huge account. They're all across the planet. But to me, this is a day that's got to be marked down in history. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, because of you've had the granddaddies of the industry have had global accounts. Your Honeywells, your Johnsons, your Siemens, your Schneider Electrics now, and they do everything from A to Z, from the sidewalks to the elevators to the X-ray machines. But we've never had the real visibility into taking the most important aspects of the building on the smallest level, the controller level. And as you said, what they did was they had the technology that got vetted out, but it was designed for the customer's needs and viewpoints versus making a product and laying it down on top. So the layers, bringing more than what the person wanted, or bringing things that they didn't need, and kind of force feeding them into this, the products that you had, because you were just limited on how you could lessen it, or there was no scalability to some of these products. It was a big investment and huge. So what happens was this global portfolio has different sized buildings, different locations, but it has all the common denominators. That it has to be, web-based, web-enabled. Everything has to have the tools have to be embedded, and so the common denominator was that every building had to have basically a controller that had all these attributes that could be scaled into a larger building automation system as necessary. So it was all wins, all pluses. There's no backward migration issues. It's all forward thinking, and you're kind of future proof because it's coming out with the latest versions of all the technologies, HTML5, whether it's and it's on Linux platform. So everybody felt comfortable that we talked to about this is a kind of new controller style. And then, as you we're going to lead on to, is the FW series, where we introduced the Wi-Fi wireless controllers series, and then the first server controller that we've seen. So the FS32 that they introduced there is now the first controller that's basically the server. It is so formidable. It is a quad processor. So we can talk about some of the specs if you want, but the
specs are actually in the post, and I encourage our viewers to go read that. But I think so. The thing that I think attracted this guy was a couple of things. Number one, there's no licensing, there's no cost for the tools. It's clean, it's simple, so they're able to implement it again on a global scale. I think EZIO is designing their products now where, once you buy a controller, you're not having to change the controller out. If something changes, you're basically taking a chip and you're putting the chip in to upgrade the system, which is really good. The big plus, like you said, they got a new controller they're coming out with. They're making a big push to using Wi-Fi, and they actually have Wi-Fi VAV controllers. That's right, folks. EZIO is coming out with Wi-Fi VAV controllers, and not just coming out with them. They've been vetted by one of the best on the planet. Jim Steiberg from Controls Consultants did a presentation, Kenny, as you know, in which he had put these VAV controllers through the paces. And if you go to the video, Jim highlights a lot of the reasons why he thinks this might be a game changer in terms of VAV controls. So lots of good stuff going on with these guys, and I think that they just keep coming back, right? I mean, we discovered these guys right when we started Control Trends, and they were just getting started with the Beast, and then it was the Big Beast, and then it was the Killer Beast, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger. And again, I think their motto is there are no sacred cows, even within their deal. If they get a sacred cow, they make hamburger out of it, and they come up with the next best thing, and they're committed to that as a philosophy. So again, you've got to check that video out if you're interested, because the technology is changing. And of course, I think when they say the rules have changed, Kenny, you got to put that in context. Tell them about the event we had in Manchester that night, the rock and roll event.
Well, they had the Audacious Church event, and this was one of the funnest things I've done. And they got us both involved, and we had a good time and lost track of time, and it was unfortunate. One thing I just wanted to say about this meeting at the day two was they introduced a lot of their ecosystem. In other words, when you make a great product and great solutions, and you have the software support and the technical support, and everything's going good, it's what's really makes your event or your concept thrive is people adopting it and then using your stuff to make their stuff. So we had saw a presentation with Alarm DB where this guy from his name was I'm going to have trouble with it, but I'm going to try it anyhow. Andreas Jazalunius. He's an automation engineer from Helgevold Electro Norway. He gave the community there his Alarm DB. He created all open source, a free data alarming system that uses all the EasyIO features and just drops it out, and anybody that wants it can download it, and it's theirs at no charge. Now, that's the stuff that really makes things work is getting the ecosystem. So getting into the Audacious Church, first we want to say how horrible we felt after that all happened because of the Manchester incident, and it still seems to be ongoing that we've got some real issues to deal with. But not to digress, but we were 800 meters from where that, or 800 meters from the actual location of that incident in Manchester. So the night, a great night came to a sad end, but we saw there that they used this professional team building group, a company that is made up of 3 or 4 world-class musicians and people that have the documents to prove it. 1 or 2 Grammy Awards there, but this guy was super talented. But he made it fun, and they created a song just by using inputs. So it reminded me of Project Haystack. We just took information, put it on the board, and somebody had to write a lyric to it and make it into a song. They did that on stage live, and they came up with EasyIO, and the rules have changed. And I thought that was a great theme, that everybody kind of, it's embedded now in everybody's mind. As soon as you hear something or you hear the little lick they did, it brings back all those memories. So, but it was great food, great entertainment, and a corporate building experience that I had never seen before or experienced before, but it worked.
Well, it did, Kenny. It did, and you were part of that. The team building was kind of cool because they selected different words from the audience, and they put it together in a song, and we got to see this process on stage, how great songwriters work together, and that in and of itself was sort of worth the price of admission, I thought. And it sort of leads very nicely to our next post, which is after that conference, which we could go on and on about. We'll be posting more videos on the EasyIO conference. But we were close enough to Liverpool, the home of the Beatles, and we think the Beatles are another great example of, people that took all the pieces, reinvented them, and put it back together. And obviously, they changed the way music as we know it today. Has come about. So, talk a bit about our Beatles tour, man. That was good times, wasn't it?
Oh, this is bucket list stuff here. And the tie into the Beatles and Smart Building Renaissance was that Lennon and McCartney were 2 of the greatest songwriter musicians, in certainly our time, but maybe of all time, as you go through how music comes together. And like you said, it took the different components. They were listening to the radio that was becoming more and more prolific, and the technology was improving, and they were listening to the American stations and hearing American rock and roll. They had skittle bands in England at the time that were kind of just taking it, and then there was this real nervy, the beginning of the rock and roll age. And so what, Lennon and McCartney, our ability to tramp through some of their grounds, we went to all the places where they played their first gig, to where they, the Cavern, to just, all the marquee places. We went to Strawberry Fields, the gate that leads to where Lennon used to go. It was an orphanage, and they used to have, I guess there was a lot of kids there, and they had a lot of picnics and whatever, and he could go there, and it was right by his house, and then Paul McCartney didn't live far away. So we got to literally walk the fields and some of the pathways they went through, and saw how they both shared some common, extraordinary sorrow as young kids when both of their moms died. Paul McCartney's mother had breast cancer, basically, and died from it, and John Lennon's mom got hit by a car, an off-duty policeman driving a car and crossing the street. And so they both had tragedies, and this seemed to forge a relationship of an incredible emotional, wells within them, and they just kept writing song after song after song that the whole world could relate to. All of a sudden, they became the representatives of all. They started dominating, music. They started dominating clothes, haircuts, and whatever, because everybody wanted to be a Beatle in their own way. And so we saw that the great songwriting was typical of 2 or 3 great executives getting together within an organization and making things happen, coming from different parts of the world with different ideas and different bases and different cultures. That mix produced, again, an attitude that leads to great solutions and products. So it was fun to do that and then literally get there and feel it. Because when you go somewhere and you literally sit there, and we took a picture of, the Penny Lane sign was cool as could be. Eleanor Rigby to go to the cemetery. I mean, that's all right there in Liverpool. And we walked probably, I think it was a total of 8.9 miles that day. We're proud. I got my little watch counter, step counter. I mean, and but it was all very, very feasible. So if you ever have an opportunity to do what we kind of put there in the post, for any of you Beatle fans out there, it's an amazing experience.
It was very, very cool, Kenny. And then to get to go to the Cavern and all those places in Liverpool really impressed me, man. That's a really nice town. We were telling people we were going to go to Liverpool. Everybody was saying, watch out. But the people couldn't have been friendlier. And it was just so cool. Again, we saw the first place Lennon and McCartney ever played. It was just cool stuff. So glad we got a chance to do that. And if you're a Beatles fan, this is something you want to watch. And then our next post, Kenny, was actually has free Phil Zito's free IT video training series. So there's a link there. You can check that out and need to for sure. One of the things about creativity, Kenny, we keep talking about people breaking the rules and changing things around, but you have to know the rules before you can break them. Okay, so Phil does a great job of educating, so definitely check him out, Mr. Bam himself, BAM, buildingautomationmonthly.com. And now sort of going back in time a little bit, Kenny, our girl Therese Sullivan, as if you follow Control Trends, before we went to England, we were down in Tampa, Florida at the Haystack Connect meeting, and Therese Therese Sullivan, our girl from the Valley, that does buildingcontext.me. Got to check her out. Does a marvelous post sort of summing things up and put them in perspective as only Therese can.
She sure does. Well, she gives a summary. Therese helped us out a little bit when we were doing some of the video work on day 1, day 2 at Project Haystack, but she does a great summary too. But puts it together. She uses a Western analogy. I got a really good. I'm going to have to read this real quick because she talks about there's the marshal. There's a new sheriff in town, so she talks about how with all the Western movies, High Noon. She talks about the Wild Bunch working on data. She talks about the fistful of dollars. When you have IT and OT standardization, less friction and data flows, and then it's a shootout at the OK Corral, and it's just an amazing fun, but it was the way she saw everything's coming together here, and the excising of the some of the obstructions and the barriers of entry and some of the hurdles that have to be achieved to get this done are being moved out of the way. And she, of course, talks about this is the 3rd biannual gathering, experts in operational technology, specifically for the equipment and controls manufacturers, software vendors, and systems integrators, at the core of open source metadata tagging standards. And what she thought was extraordinary is that you really and truly are seeing waves now that go up into beyond the building space. They go into industrial and energy solution architectures. They go into smart city architectures. They go into smart grid architectures. And to have the people from some of the big people there were the people from Intel. And so that's Dr. Wahhabi talking about the data modeling, the need for semantic schemes and label dictionaries for the world, for cars, cities, homes, energy, and how buildings are discentered. So she threw up a screenshot, and it had 5 circles, and buildings are in the middle of them all. So the BAS systems that we have are very critical aspects of getting this interoperability, at a national level, city level, and a national level. And then ASHRAE is coming on board. With Haystack, they're making an expressed effort, and they talked about how they were going to have
BACnet, right?
BACnet standards, the ASHRAE 223 announcement, which was a great thing. One of the gentlemen from Intel said that some of the legacy protocols out there that were written before the IoT boom may have missed the opportunity when they wrote their stuff to include the critical stuff like cybersecurity and didn't have tagging in it to the level of the new requirements that Project Haystack is presenting. So they're going to do a bridge work to get that kind of rolling, and probably in a couple years you'll see BACnet will have a full Project Haystack dictionary. and you'll have that synergy occurring, that melding, and it's just going to get better. But and then they had panels. They had a lot of discussions. She picked out some great people. Alper Alsmezer's presentation on addressing implement haystack from cloud to edge. So she's saying that there's a new group of lightweight BAS people and suitable solutions for analytics at the edge. So we're seeing this Marco Polo thing where the Silk Route used to be, you go to the Far East and bring it back, and the whole idea was distance from local to the cloud back to local. And we're seeing some consequences at the time, the bandwidth, the expense, that if you could actually get the analytics on the edge that you actually need for that exact moment in time and that exact zone or that exact building, you'd be saving a lot of that time travel. You'd be saving a lot of the processing and the bandwidth because you get what you need right there. So there's a new sheriff, as she describes it, and it's kind of cool. And it's going to be based on, a lot of the stuff's going to be based on Project Haystack and tagging.
It certainly seems to be the way to go, Project Haystack. And like you said, at the edge with the Sedona programming being as prevalent as it is, which if you're familiar with Workbench, you can probably do Sedona. It's, again, a Brian Frank invention. So it really does allow you to take a lot of those analytics, put them out on the edge. And like you said, it saves on the costs and everything else. And man, dude, do you have a digital twin? You got to read the article to find out about that. All right, buddy. So we shifted from there to some Ken Calendar stuff. So we got 3 events I think we should cover real quick because they're kind of time sensitive. For our European community, EZIO's CPT trainings in the UK and the Netherlands. Again, you can get the dates on that. It looks like June 26th and 27th. Our friends over at Optigo have a cool webinar coming up, and they were actually at Haystack, and they're talking about how they can use their tools in conjunction with Bueno Systems to troubleshoot BACnet network. So that's definitely worth checking out. And then our good friends at ACI, their gas detection webinar is this Wednesday, June 7th at 10 a.m. So you definitely want to check that piece out. And Kenny, I tell you what, that brings us to our guest this week, and I'm sensing a change. What about you?
Yeah, Ken St. Clair's Automated Buildings theme for June 2017 was Sensing the Change. And what's kind of cool is Ken always has, he's got the amazing flair of Ken St. Clair. He has a way to make dry stuff more interesting, but his questioning and answering style, he does a didactic style of editorials where he asks a question and then answers it and then invites more comments, and he does great support. So he has a fun way of explaining what he sees happening. So
let's get him to explain himself, man. We got him holding online right now. So
alrighty.
All right. Without any further ado, check out the flair of our man Ken Sinclair, AutomatedBuildings.com. So Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what have you been up to, Ken? It's been a while since we've seen you. We've been off globetrotting, and you've been spending 50 years getting married. So let's start with congratulations on you and Jane. Yay. 50 years, huh?
Oh, thank you very much.
Congratulations. Yeah. Yep.
And so right off the bat on our Control Trends question line, people want to know, did Ken remember the 50th anniversary?
Yeah, that one we did because, actually, we always go to Haystack. I always take Jane to the Haystack event for our anniversary, but
that didn't quite fly this time, huh?
Because it was special
yeah.
And there was a whole bunch of people coming. We decided to pull off. It actually it usually lands on our anniversary, which is May 20th, but it was a little earlier this year. But we actually had folks coming from afar to poke fun at us, to watch us rust, I guess would be the best definition.
Hey, Ken, you're making me look bad here because guess who else has an anniversary on May 20th that wasn't there? Me.
Oops. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've had one of my anniversaries.
Haystack folks, they don't have a lot of sentiment for anniversaries because it's a pretty popular marriage date.
Well, I tell you what, Ken, that's probably a good place to start. We definitely want to get into the June issue of AutomatedBuildings.com because I tell you what, as we say, Ken Sinclair is our Nostradamus. He's the guy who sort of is looking out in the future, shining the beacon. He's our Paul Revere, if you will. But Kenny and I really believe that we are in a smart building controls renaissance and that change is afoot. And we sort of define that by People are, a great example is somebody once told me, there are no more sacred cows. If we see a sacred cow, we're going to chop it up and make hamburger. And, we've talked about this in the past, but, part of the Renaissance was people are not necessarily obeying the rules anymore. They're breaking them. They're reconfiguring stuff. And so first of all, sort of what's your take on where we are sort of in the smart buildings and building automation control cycle?
That's actually a pretty good opening for it. I think I would agree very much with that. And I think that's what's prompted me on to grab the theme, sensing the change, because there is just an incredible lot of change in the industry. I think of all my years in the industry, I don't think I've ever seen a time when there's been so many things. That's a good one. Nothing is sacred anymore. There's no rules to kind of base on. Everything is floating, and we're colliding with a new industry, IoT, and we're also colliding with a new work group that is completely changing the rules of what's expected in the space. We have these new tools. We have social media that we never had to get feedback from the folks, and this whole idea that we're starting to see, we've grown up in an environment where we've sensed temperature, humidity, and indoor air quality, and now we're starting to look at the big data on people's watches and Fitbits, and it's just a different world. And we're starting to acknowledge people's presence by basically their Wi-Fi presence, and just a whole myriad of new thought.
So, I've got a statement about that. I got some good news and some bad news for the people in our industry, because I think that, like you said, we got people from Silicon Valley all over that are sort of redefining, what a building should look like, for example. But the thing about breaking the rules is you have to know the rules before you can break them. And that's where I think our industry might have a bit of an advantage, because at the end of the day, if you don't understand how a chiller works or how to move air and water through a building, you can do more harm than you can do good. So I think the good news is our industry is sort of poised to step in. The bad news is if we don't sort of embrace, what we're seeing, you and me and Kenny and everybody else is seeing in terms of what the Realcomm, Ibicon, the Realcomm people are wanting, you're gonna be left in the cold, out in the cold, man.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think some folks are actually worried that, IoT will replace their job. And I do not think that is an issue at all. In fact, it just points to the problem, the shortage of the skill set that we have, and how do we get more folks involved. It's just that they're going to be deployed differently. The problems that we've all known have been there for many years are now getting highlighted with analytics and now getting quantified. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is we knew there was the chiller was too small or didn't work properly, but we were never able to quantify what that meant in human comfort and what it meant in energy to the building. Now we can, so a whole bunch of projects are going to come out. So I think our traditional industry will be busier than ever. And the new industry of basically identifying all of this is just going to be crazy as it is right now.
Good comment. I agree. I think that like you just put those 4 layers together, which was very good. So you got new tools, and we have IoT, breaking the rules, and with new technology, you got a new workforce with new expectations, and then you have just a period of disruption. So that the cool thing about it is that it's the problems have existed all along, and we're going to have a traditional industry that's going to stay busy in that regard. But then we're going to actually have a much better focus and better aim at solving problems, because we have better data to do it. I really enjoyed the way you made the play on the words, a double entendre. But I think that sensing the change means to me, I think first is you changing the good old sensor on the wall to a smart sensorized occupant, or an activated participation with the technology makes the people their role so much more relevant, and so much the context has changed. I think that's a great thing, making people more productive in a place. That's a great end result.
People as the sensors, actually, one of the events is sort of building it, which I thought was kind of a good way. That's what the evolution is, and that's when just saying those words, that's pretty amazing. Is that we've been sort of sensing, trying to figure out what the people want. Why don't we just sense the people and somehow create a control loop between the people and what we're doing?
Right, great stuff. Well, Ken, we got a lot to talk about, and we could go over some of the great articles real quick. Why don't you tell us a couple of your favorite? Because what you do each time, as I say, you use a didactic style of editorialism, where you ask a question, then you partially answer it, and then you provide some great content to support it.
Well, hang on a second. I got to hop in here because I got to ask about this title, because boy, if times changed from let them eat cake to let the people rule. So let's talk about Brad White's article right off the bat. How about that?
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, that fits in very well to letting the people be the censors. And this is kind of a fun one for us, because it's a homegrown technology that's come out of the University of British Columbia. And I don't know if you read the interview last month. He's basically identifies himself as a geek who basically wants to save the world, and this is the way he's going to save the world, is to basically identify where the people are. And what he's done is he's noticed that there's all this data that's available in these Wi-Fi routers as to who's connected to the Wi-Fi router. And by counting that information and quantifying it and putting it into big data, he's able to track the flow, especially well on campuses where they have a total integrated Wi-Fi system. And that's what this article is about. This article is about the actual application of how they did that, and how that changes, and how the usage of the building isn't really what we think it is. And actually, Brad does a great job of saying that we've been collecting all this incredible information about what is the system doing, but we don't really know what the people are doing, and of course that's a big part of the puzzle.
Well, yeah.
So having this information, it's great.
Well, and a new term came out of it. What was it? Virtual occupancy or whatever. There was a new term that the other guy from Sematics wrote about. Mm-hmm. So virtual, and so are we getting close to the times of occupancy sensors as we know them today, sort of being a thing of the past, right? Because obviously the phones don't lie, the Wi-Fi networks don't lie, and I guess you just have to give people the right to track you through the building. So we get into that whole thing.
This is the advantage of this system, is that you don't have to give them the right, because in fact it doesn't know who it is. It just knows that there's a Wi-Fi. It just counts IP addresses. It doesn't identify the IP addresses of the devices connected. So what you see is you just see a dynamic portrait of all of that. That's one of the important pieces of it, because that is a problem. The whole, I don't want you to know where I am. I don't know where you are. All I know is there's somebody in there with a mobile device connected to this router. And as I switch routers, then we recount that. So what we're seeing is that Friday afternoon, surprise, surprise, some of the people are slipping away, and they're not there till they're not attending the 3 and 4 and 5 o'clock classes in a university. Can you imagine that? The other thing that came out of this too was that this big data became more valuable to the folks planning the university than it was to us, even though it was extremely valuable to us to know how to operate the air systems. It was more important to them to understand for planning, and also to know that they had a lecture theater for 150 and there was only 30 people showing up. Was very valuable information for them, because then they could actually schedule the next one of those in a 30 or 35 classroom. So it basically allowed them to become more efficient in scheduling scheduling the whole university, or it was college in this case. Anyway, so yeah, that's the thing with big data is once we start grabbing it, and if we can keep it that it doesn't necessarily be attached to people, then it has great value.
Well, Ken, another great article I saw was that in the discussion on health performance indicators. In other words, it's one thing to have people comfortable, and that's great. And again, the whole concept is to make a building space a better place for humans. But tell us a little bit about that Sensors for Health organization. That was a really interesting aspect on how critical this can be, and how the shift might be on, instead of talking about the building anymore, you talk about the people inside the building, and the focus is the people. And they were given all this. So I took that link you had, Sensors for Health, and went on, and there's about a 2 or 3 minute video that just really and truly is out of Harvard. They've got a special section of Harvard dedicated to making people more productive, heal quicker, have a healthier, more productive life inside of a building. How'd you come across that connection?
That's an interesting one. Basically, being part of Realcomm, I'm not sure why Howard chose to put me as part of that. I think what he's thinking is that there's basically the 9 fundamentals of health in the building, which has been done by Harvard. They basically have laid this out, and they've tried to simplify this, and I think they've done a good job of that. And so the presentation at Realcomm is about that. And I think what Howard wants me to do is to just relate that back to how we will respond to it, and how we can try and turn that into basically sense that change and basically somehow document it in social media. How can we start to get people to feedback? One of the ones that was interesting in the 9 fundamentals is noise. We haven't really dealt with that one much, but it's certainly one we should. And of course, light from a lighting point of view, but light from a shading, glaring point of view. A lot of these things that annoy us need to be quantified. We need to understand, come up with more measurement metrics, and that's sort of, I think, why I'm commenting on it. So basically, the format of that session, which is the session which was Smart Building and Wellness, Technology's Role in Healthy Buildings, is the session at Realcomm, and it's on 11:45 on Thursday. So what's going to happen is Joe's going to take the bulk of the time and explain all the research that Harvard has done, and then I'm just basically commenting on that and sort of how that'll fit into our industry.
Well, it's really cool because, I mean, I'm looking at the thing, and I didn't mean to take us on a digression. I just meant that the new technology and IoT, this is a manifestation of the application of the new stuff, the new way to look at a healthy building. 9 foundations. You got ventilation, thermal health, air quality, noise, duct, and PESTA, water quality, lighting and views, moisture, and safety and security. And then they have a circular evaluation where you're given a 0 to 100% on your performance in each respective area inside of a circle. So it's a pretty cool concept.
Well, it's a really cool concept. If you think about it, it feeds right into the $300 rule, right? Where if you can get people be more productive, that's really the biggest savings you can get. And, we're seeing more and more real estate people that are focusing on that side of it, but without the data and these metrics, like Ken says, defining what and analyzing what makes people more productive, you just can't have that work. Guys, I got to go on a tangent here just for a minute, sort of talking about technology. And so 2 things I noticed. We were in New Mexico, Ken, and my daughter got sick. She goes to the doctor. The doctor says, yeah, you need to get such and such medicine. She says, well, I got to go to the pharmacy. She goes, no, you don't have to go to the pharmacy. She goes over, there's a computer screen, like a box on the wall. She presses the thing, and there's a pharmacist that comes on. They've already emailed the prescription, so she gives her the credit card information, and right there in the doctor's office, her medicine gets dispensed from a remote pharmacist. That's one. 2, the other thing now, Ken, and this just blew me away, because I've got 2 small kids, so they're always getting sick, or she's always having to check. For $100 a year, she's able to access this network of physicians, right? So actually they come on, via Skype or whatever, and they can look at the kid, they take the temperature or whatever, so the doctor can do a remote diagnostic and then prescribe medicine or whatever. There's certain things they can't do, but I mean, it's a way doctors are becoming more scalable, right? So, my point being, other industries are really embracing and using the technology in very, very unique ways. And if you want to know how they're using it, you got to talk to a millennial.
Cool.
That's for sure. That's a great example.
Well, we have a whole lot to talk about, and I wanted to just keep the drumbeat going. The great coverage of Haystack. Tell us what you thought of the Haystack. You couldn't go there because your anniversary. We know that. It's a very admirable, noble thing you did. Congratulations again, 50 years. That's awesome. But what did you, from your perceptions and some of the things that you've seen from Therese and from us, what did you think of Haystack?
Yeah, well, that's my sense of it is reading the articles that we have on our site, and I think we have four or five articles that are basically pointed directly at Haystack, and we certainly have tweeted and posted the video you guys did, which is great. So I watched pretty much all of that video. It looked to me like, and judging from the articles, the biggest overall message is that Haystack is tremendously grown and is no longer accepted as a sort of a pie in the sky. It's how do we actually do it? How do we actually implement Haystack? There's not such the question as should we anymore. So that's pretty clear. And actually that maybe goes back to where we started this, and we're talking that it's like a Wild West shoot, and the rule is there's no rules. Actually, I would like to sort of focus back and circle back on that the standards we have created have become even more important. BACnet has become accepted and is like motherhood, as is Haystack is starting to be. The fact that it's embraced by Intel and other majors, and so those are becoming rules, and open source is becoming a rule as well. So we actually are just evolving new rules. They're probably a little more flexible than we've had before. But anybody starting out with a new product that didn't address those, BACnet didn't address Haystack, and didn't address how they basically are going to play in the open source field, I think is not going very far.
Right, and just a review of those four, you had Haystack Connect and IoT on Common Ground by Therese Sullivan. You had Haystack Connect 2017 recap with John Petsy and Mark Peacock. You have, let's see here, the Real Scientists, Top Data Gurus Leading IoT from the Project Haystack organization. And we've already commented on some of the great stuff that Therese Sullivan brought back from, we put her up, her last post that she put out for the buildingcontext.me. It was just great stuff. So we're seeing how the Haystack is used to. It's no longer if we're going to do it. It's when you're going to do it. At what level in your organization, whether you're a systems integrator or you're a manufacturer, you've got to take this very seriously now, and it's good for everybody. And Intel did the bridging. They took us from a smart building and the importance of having, it made a lot of sense in a building. But they said the big picture, people, we got to look at this at a macro level. We're talking to buildings were the center of a circular presentation, like an Olympic, the Olympic model, the logo icon, and smart buildings are in the middle of residential, industrial, commercial, and smart cities. So the point made by one of the presenters was that this semantic thing has such incredible down the road value. And in one day, the work we're doing, it's not just pioneering work for our building automation. It could be integrated at some levels to a smart city, a smart grid. And it's what we need to do to have a better future.
Great. One of the ones that I picked up on too was the technical presentations at Haystack that was supplied by Contemporary Controls. And the one that caught my eye is the hobbyist computers, is control and data modeling now free? And if you take a look at that PDF of the presentation, it's pretty neat. And maybe the piece that everybody may not have saw so clearly as I did, is this is likely an opening for us to get the makers, these young hobbyists is probably one of the ways that they'll get interested in our industry. They'll come in, they're able to actually get their little Raspberry Pi and download and actually create a controller, download a controller, and they'll start poking around with it. They'll discover BACnet, and they're going to say, hey, this is kind of neat, what you can do with all of this stuff. And lo and behold, I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody who's autodidactic to basically teach themselves our industry through that hobby. And once they have that skills, I'm sure that they would not have trouble finding a job with anybody in our industry. So that's an interesting play that I saw anyway. It's just
Ken,
this whole...
it's sort of really quick picking up on that. EasyIO is coming out with something that's going to play right into that. And we're not at liberty to say, but let's just say they've got something that's going to be available to college students, university students, that's going to put them right in the sweet spot of learning exactly what that is. So I think you're right on it with that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, if like really the big part of Apple's success is their early entry into the school system and basically convincing teachers and stuff that, we should computerize and we should use Apple computers. And of course, the whole education system supported Apple much better than Microsoft. And that's sort of helped, I think, their growth a lot. And yes, I think that is a incredible opportunity to do the transition. And it's a good one for us too, because it turns out that one of the best things we do is we make I/O, because we've been doing it for 20, 30 years. And it's not easy to make bulletproof I/O that doesn't automatically switch on and off when it shouldn't. And when you start doing that as a hobby, you quickly find that out. So all of a sudden what's happening is the brains of these hobby computers are starting to fall into our old I/O designs, and we also know how to put that stuff into racks, how to mount it, how to wire it, how to keep it safe, how to keep the high voltage and the low voltage separate, and all of that, which is really our industry. So I think this is a great introduction.
Well, good stuff. And Kenny, you just gave me an idea for a business. What do you say you, me, and Kenny get together with some of these vendors we know and create a new company called Bulletproof IO? Hey, listen, buddy, we're going to see you at Realcomm IBCon. Hope we can get you in, Teresa, and we'll do a day 1, day 2 recap, kind of like we did in the past out there. But we're going to have to hop up. But before we do, I got something on the text line. Hey, Eric and Ken, we saw your Smart Building Controls Renaissance with the Beatles in Liverpool. Was Ken Sinclair a Beatle? If not, which Beatle would he be?
I enjoyed them a lot, but I would probably be like Paul McCartney kind of guy.
Okay, because we heard on pretty good authority that you were more of a heavy metal guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was thinking, sorry, I was going to go like Ringo, because he reminds me of John Petty, but.
Well, speaking of that, did you see the video of Petty and that group playing at the Interoperable Blues Band? We got some footage of them playing, and they did a great job, I thought. So.
Yeah, looked like a fun. Looked like you had some ringer singers. I'm that's not the right way to say it, but some folks singing as well.
They did.
Oh yeah,
they did for sure. So, all right. Well, listen, Ken, we got to hop off, but the June issue of AutomatedBuildings.com is out. Be sure to check it out. Our guest has been Ken Sinclair. Ken, thanks for taking a few minutes to speak with us, and we will see you in San Diego.
Okay, great. We'll look for you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Ken.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Kenny, hey, man, that was great stuff from Ken Sinclair, as always. Be sure to check his issue out, June issue of AutomatedBuildings.com. And sort of brings us to our final post. A passion project of mine, Kenny, as you know, is Control Trends People. You and I both believe that we've got some of the greatest people in the world in our industry. So we're trying to do like deep dives into their lives with Control Trends People. And this week we had Jeff Hout from Automation Integrated on.
Well, that's Yeah, I love what you're doing there. I think our whole theme and premise is that we do have rock stars. Maybe not guitar playing rock stars, but we have people that are very, very intelligent and extraordinary, and have picked building automation as their careers. And within their careers, they've made it interesting and they've made it profitable. And you see how again the different parts of the country have different needs and different requirements. And what they've done out there in Oklahoma, everybody can benefit. One of the coolest things that Jeff and his team put together was the drones that they use already. They've already deployed a drone service where they can go out and monitor the utility poles for one of those big states like Oklahoma, where it's a lot of farming, a lot of spacious, a lot of area. Very difficult to send a person there. What an extraordinary benefit it is to have that all automated using drones versus having somebody in a truck like the old days taking pictures and doing physical inspections in person, where they can do it now through the incredible technology of drone servicing. So, but he's just a very forward thinker, and they got a lot of great products and offerings that they can. So they're a master systems integrator, and that introduces a whole subset or different areas of expertise that they can help an organization. So they can do a last 100 yards project. So when you're running out of gas and you got to get some graphics done, or you need some one last look or some tweaking and tuning in your programming, and they even do they have a service that they introduced for equipment monitoring that includes a pictorial depiction of the status of your equipment, so that as you have energy savings and you have budget money coming in, you can look at your worst case scenario. You can use your diagnostics. You can use your performance. And most importantly is they don't kid around. They show you a picture of this rusted RTU unit or roof top unit that needs replaced. It's because you think we only bought that 12 years ago. That should be good. Well, they're showing you that time has wounded this equipment. We need to replace it. So as soon as we get some money, so it gives you a great opportunity to introduce technologies that support your service in maintenance contracts.
Well, I tell you what, Kenny, to me, the thing too with it is, it's interesting to me how people's lives actually shape the way they think about things. I think Jeff is truly an innovative thinker, and I think success leaves clues. It's kind of like the reason we read biographies. So again, we go deep back in these people's lives. We have other episodes with guys like Mike Marston, Lim Hu Chat, Mark Peacock, and some of the greats in our industry. So check that out. Let us know what you think. And with that, Kenny Smyers, a very, very special thanks to our guest this week, the one and only Ken Smyers from AutomatedBuildings.com.
Ken Sinclair.
And with
I'll
that,
take the credit,
with that, Kenny, very special thanks to our guest this week, Ken Sinclair, the one and only from AutomatedBuildings.com. Be sure to check them out. So, buddy, thanks to our Control Trends audience for tuning in. Remember, be bold, stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers. And that's a wrap. All right, buddy. Cool.